This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring former FBI Special Agent and Chief of the Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Program, Robin Dreeke.
And I don't want to be super pessimistic about this whole thing and say that it's hopeless, because I don't think it is. I mean, I think it's a very long road, and there's a lot that needs to be done to have the impact of this make sense, or make a positive impact going forward, and not just kind of a, here we're going to punish somebody, we're all going to talk about it, and at the end of the day, what is the plan going forward? I think, a lot of times you have troubled teens. It's oftentimes, not always, but I think if you statistically look at it, they're coming from troubled parents. And, where does that start then? I mean, if you have troubled parents that are dealing with their own demons and such, it's hard. And I think just oftentimes the reality is they're incapable of being good parents for those troubled teens. And then that's how you have these cycles that repeat themselves over and over. So I'm all about, let's hold parents responsible here, especially when there's extreme amounts of ignorance of like buying a gun for the kid that, has these problems. That was just, there was no way around that in this specific case. And many cases in the past are similar to this, but there's several that are not. And I'm not saying we don't do anything, because there's some where like, look, their parents aren't troubled either. The kid just got into a bad group and bad mindset, and they needed help, or the help was there and they still weren't able to change. But what do we do? What do we do, okay, with this decision that has been made that we're going to hold Crumbley responsible to actually enact this or enable parents, especially those that may not have a lot of mental health knowledge or resources, to be better parents? So then, in effect, they can have better kids, and their kids aren't going to be so troubled. Because right now, there's not a lot. And yes, there's mental health help if you have insurance, if you have money, if you have this. And if you don't, well, there's free resources. Yes, but they're not the greatest. We don't exactly have a system where it's easily accessible or that effective. We are extremely lacking in really caring about mental health in this country. So it feels like, okay, we got one piece of the puzzle over here in place, the box we just opened, but we got the whole puzzle yet to put together. Lovely. The picture on the box looks great, like you just described. But with that one piece of the puzzle in place, the rest of the puzzle has not been built yet. What do we need to do to get the rest of that puzzle to be put together so that this does make a difference? And we can go kind of down the path of what you just described.
Well, I wish I had the answer to that one. I don't know, but kind of going back to the case, I'm not so concerned as some are, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail on this one, just because I don't think this is as much of a landmark case on the parents. I still see this as it following the evidence. Mm-hmm. Because these parents were very neglectful. These human beings were neglectful of their actions. They didn't think like even a half step forward to buying a gun for a troubled teen. And that could be a next door neighbor that bought a gun for a troubled teen. That could be a grandmother or a grandfather, an aunt or uncle. It could have been anyone in a close proximity to someone that had enough witty knowledge that someone was troubled and had some mental challenges going on, and you bought them a firearm and they're a teenager. I mean, there's a lot of data points there that are really wrong, that they were held accountable for by a jury, so it's not an individual deciding that. So I like the system that was in place on this one. And I saw it more of a good act of justice being done rather than a referendum on parenting. Mm-hmm. Because like you said, there's a lot of challenges out there with parenting, and you don't want the state to come in and start regulating how to parent.
No,
because but I don't know the solution to it either. I just don't.
I mean, I feel like a lot of parents are so desperate to try and have a relationship with their kids that they, rather than being the parent and guiding them along and not being the best friend, being someone who does put their foot down, that doesn't mean you're going to have that real tight bond that maybe some of your friends' kids have that are trying to be more on their level. I mean, I'm thinking of, the families where it's like, yeah, why don't we all drink together? Why don't we, I'm going to be the source of you being immature. And there's arguments in all those sort of ways, and it certainly doesn't necessarily equate to buying a gun for your troubled teen. But it feels we are in such a society of we all want to be liked. We want our kids to like us. So we're going to do more things on a friend level than a parental level. And I think that's where we get driven down this road where, what else could I have done? Well, being a parent would have been number one.
All right, so I'm flipping my own mind around here for you. So here's what I would do. Here's what Robin does. Here's how Robin communicates for these types of healthy relationships. And I literally just put another course, and I got another book coming out on this stuff. But here's what I do with my kids. Here's what I do with everyone in my life. Here's what I do with Tony. I got these things called the keys to communication. And so if everyone can adopt some of these things and language into their lives, it'll create that dialogue and relationship you need with someone that will then inspire them to share with you. Because the thing that keeps people safe one-on-one and in society is really situational awareness. Mm-hmm. All bad things happen generally because one person does something that people ignore and walk away from, whether it's a bomb being left over in a corner, whether it's jetliners being hijacked, or whether it's a troubled teenager having a gun. It's because someone didn't notice it. They didn't say something, and they didn't have situational awareness to what's going on. They didn't feel safe to have that kind of situational awareness. And so here's what I call the keys of communication. One, you have to have the mindset to have open, honest communication. You want transparency. You want vulnerability with those you're interacting with, because that makes people feel trusted, and they want to feel safe with who they are. They want to be seen. They want to be heard, and they want to be valued. With my own children, when we communicated, the one thing that my wife was insistent on, I'm a former Marine. I can come at you. I can judge the living hell out of you. But you want to shut someone down really fast? Judge them. You want to shut them down? Judge their friends. You want to shut them down even more? Judge their decisions. You want to start going shields up? Judge them. And when you get their shields up, they're going to get their brain rewarded from someone else then instead of you. And they're going to open up to someone else. This is what drives children away from parents. This is what drives people away from anyone, is being judged. So the way that I communicate, the way to communicate a good, healthy relationship where you can have situational awareness and mitigate problems before they even become them is one, have an open, honest communication and seek the thoughts and opinions of others instead of sharing your own. Talk in terms of their challenges, priorities, pain points, and friction points in life instead of yours. In other words, with your children, interact that way. 3, active curiosity. Be non-judgmentally curious about what's going on in their life, the decisions they're making, and discover the what, the how, and the who behind each thing they're doing with curiosity. That way you're not judging it and their shields won't go up. And finally, empower people with choices about how to move forward. Use the word if that sounds good to you, if you're comfortable doing this. When you use one of those 4 things in every kind of dialogue and communication you have, it mitigates all these unhealthy relationships because you're making it about the other person. One of the reasons why people start down a negative road of human interaction and taking vengeance out on others and keeping a scorecard and feeling like a victim is because they don't have that kind of healthy relationship earlier on. You be that kind of person that can communicate with someone in that way, you're going to start mitigating. So going back to that original question, what can we do? Well, there's Robin's pie in the sky. It's a very simple process. You start communicating with someone that way and you become one more person in their life that does it that way. You're planting the seeds for how they're now going to start interacting with others. Woo! Long monologue done.
We just solved all the world's problems with parenting.
It really can.
I completely agree. And those are great points and extremely effective as well. You know, if they can be implemented and lived by. And I hope, and I think things like that, education, I think, is probably one of the biggest things, and helping people learn those sort of tactics and techniques and ideas and ways of living. You know, it's applied more than just through parenting. It's applied through any sort of relationship. And if one can kind of get into those modes and start acting those ways and start living life through that sort of a prism, it would be extremely effective. And hopefully, you know, we can start thinking about some of those things and maybe starting that education early with our kids. Yeah. So these sort of principles are ingrained in them from a very young age. And it's not such a, oh, you've lived life this far to 30, 40 something. And now, I've been doing it all wrong. And then being able to be open and honest enough with oneself to say, yeah, maybe I should try this a different way because things haven't been working out so well.
And I apologize for taking off my true crime hat and putting on my behaviorist hat, but that is at the core of how to see the world in a really good, healthy way and solving all those challenges and problems you might have, because it comes down to having a great, healthy relationship can solve just about everything.
Coming up next on Dr. Phil, we're going to have Robin's 7th grade teacher going to be joining us to prod.
Sick of the ads?
We are too.
Start listening with no commercials now and get access to all of our episodes in advance of everyone else.
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Sign up now.